2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Martin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
You're listening to Project Recovery, and we're listening to Ryan's story. It started with him at a young age moving from San Diego to Utah to London to Boston, back to Utah, going to Westminster College, losing his scholarship, getting cut off from the family, and having wrapped up 2 felonies and being homeless on the street. So your family cut you off. You're running from the law. You haven't done your probation. What's that look like?
It looks like me living on the streets, literally. Sleeping on 4500 South. I would have to break into sheds just to be warm. And that was the worst for me. When I was all alone and I had literally nowhere where I was welcome. And I didn't last long homeless. I got arrested again, and they would release me, and I would get arrested again, and then finally I did go to court, and they put me on this probation, and I started to listen, just because I didn't want to go to jail. That, for me, is the worst place on this planet. And I finally answered to some charges, and I did 6 months, and I opted to stay in jail for 2 months to wait to go to a program, so I didn't have to go back and be homeless.
So you turned your 6-month sentence into an 8-month sentence just to make sure you...
Sorry, 4 to 6. A 4-month, but I ended up staying 6, but yeah.
To get into a recovery center.
Yeah, the single place I hate on the most on the planet, I said, you know what, if I don't have a chance. If I go out there, I'm going to die.
What was it, I would say safety-wise, what was it like living by yourself on the streets?
It's not only unsafe, but inevitably, even homeless, we're social, and we find people. I found people in my situation, and using buddies, and we would pretend to watch out for each other. But the reality is, I didn't want to be the first one to fall asleep. Many times, the few things I did have, I would wake up and they were gone. Walking to get the soup line, spending your whole day just getting food and trying to stay warm, and obviously drugs. You find that first. That's above all else when I was in my addiction. And once I elected and I made that choice, I said I'll stay in jail. They looked at me like I was crazy. No, we can release you. And no, it's not a good option for me. And so I did. I went to treatment for nearly 5 months, and that was my 10th treatment, by the way. So my family rescued me a lot.
They sent you to treatments that you weren't really invested in, I guess.
I think at the time I felt like I was, but I obviously, the results are different. But the first couple, no. I just, wanted to
make everybody happy.
Exactly.
So what was different about you in this 5-month treatment compared to the 9 before that? What was different about your approach to it?
It's that rock bottom you're talking about. I decided when I was in jail that I was done. This can no longer continue. I've got to do whatever I'm asked, whatever I'm told, and I still have, and it's hard, to come from nothing.
But not only to come from nothing, you came from what most people would say is everything.
Absolutely.
So you were given everything, you lost everything, then you had nothing, and so, I mean, you've been on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, money is not the answer, no matter what, people say, because I was miserable when I was well off, I was miserable, and I was happy in both places. Yeah, I get that, because people say, well, look at what you had. Look at all the things you had. And those things don't matter. They're nice. I love having a car. Way better than walking. but
I can attest to that.
Casey, you know anything about that, Casey?
Yeah.
But it's not the thing that makes me happy now.
It makes things easier.
You get better problems. As the more money that I make, I just get better problems. Before it was like, wow, do I get to eat today? And now it's like, do I want to order something on Amazon while I watch Netflix? Like, I got way better problems.
I like that. But you go in for 4 months, you stay an extra 2, you go into a recovery. Where were your parents when you were in jail and in recovery? Had they broken all conversation off?
Not conversation. But the financial bailout was done. I am very lucky that my family still took my phone calls when I was in jail and paid for those phone calls. But there was absolutely going to be no assistance.
So emotionally, they still wanted to be there for you, but they knew they couldn't finance your addiction any longer.
Yeah. I mean, they were going to help me kill me, and it's crazy, but I feel like that rock bottom, it's different for everybody. I am a very slow learner when it comes to this stuff. I thought I could outsmart it, outthink it. If there was a way that I could just do it this way or use this, I would have figured it out. But it's not. It's just a full-on, got to surrender. I had to surrender, I should say.
So you get out of prison or jail, and you go into a recovery center for 5 months. What recovery center did you go into?
I went to Valley.
And what is that?
They have I guess it's relatively new. It's only like 4 or 5 years old. It's an inpatient, and it's a result. The funding, I guess, is a result of Medicaid expansion. So there's a lot of people getting the option to get better.
It's a publicly funded recovery here in Salt Lake.
Yeah, it is.
Because at this point, you didn't have your parents' insurance. You were living on the street. You were breaking into sheds to find warmth. You were in jail for 6 months.
And that's why you had to wait an extra 2 months, because there's a wait list to go to Valley.
And you had the option of being freed, and you knew that wasn't going to be a good idea. So you go, at least I can stay here. It's warm. And they say, you got 3 hots and a cot.
Yep.
And you felt that was better. So that was probably one of the wisest decisions you've made along this road.
Yep. And by far one of the hardest. And yeah, I go for, I think it was like 5 months inpatient. And I just followed all the clinical advice and AA and 12-step recovery-based advice. I was willing to listen this time.
It sounds like because you surrendered, you were at a place where you're willing to just do what they told you to do.
Yeah.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
So how long have you been sober now?
15 months.
So right about my amount.
Yeah, I think we're really close, actually.
Yeah. But when I was pulling you up in the elevator today, you said it's been a hectic day because the problems don't go away. You say they just become more manageable, but you're still dealing with some aftermath?
Unbelievable aftermath. And I don't know about time, but so those charges in St. George, those assault charges, I was blacked out, and I don't remember anything about that night. Nothing, zero. I just pled guilty, and I finally yesterday got the actual police report to figure out what I did to get assault charges. What happened was I got arrested, and they wanted to find out what I was on, and they took me to the ER, and they blood tested me, and then they wanted a urine sample, and I couldn't, and they forcefully put a catheter in me. And while I was being held down, I was resisting, I think, which would be natural. And my foot bumped the officer's leg. And that's grounds for 2 felony assaults. And this has made me more emotional about anything that I've been in a long time. Bumping somebody's leg has cost me so much as I've tried to progress in my recovery. Being shut out of jobs, being turned away from places to live. And by their own accord, this is what happened. And I know that I am by far unique on this. And I just, it makes me very passionate I want to do something about this. How can we arrest people like me and then put them on these probations and then we can't live anywhere. We can't get any decent jobs, even being educated. It's just unbelievable that somebody can cause as much havoc, and this is going to last for at least 5 more years.
I'm curious. So it's just this week that you've been able to read the police reports and find out exactly what you did.
Yes.
Up to that point, if I understand what you're saying, you didn't know what you had done. What did you think you might have done? I can only imagine if I were blacked out and got felony charges, didn't know what I did, I might be really worried that I might have really caused some real serious harm. What were your thought processes until you did you have an idea of what you'd done? Were you worried you'd done something terrible?
Zero idea. But here's why this is so passionate for me. I know at the core of my being I am a good person. And I know I would never hurt people on purpose, even when I'm intoxicated. And but when I'm in this position and I don't remember anything.
But you must have assumed you did something more than bump into a officer, resist arrest.
It was this evidence subconsciously that I needed to reinforce that I'm not enough belief, and make it so that it was impossible to overcome.
And for the audience, for the listeners, who aren't familiar with charges, having these charges you can't just, if you have felony charges.
It affects where you work, where you can live, what you can do, whether you can vote.
It dramatically limits the normal privileges that an adult has, even if you are sober.
I'm kind of conflicted on this because I do understand your frustration 100%. You know what I mean? I understand the frustration and these charges and the ramifications that they're going to have on the rest of your life. But I also know in my addict brain and my heavy addiction days, I got away with a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been, and I got caught on some of the stuff. And so the way I look at it is, this sucks, man, and I wish it hadn't happened to you. You know what I mean? But I think what I would say to do is be the one that initiates change, fight for this. But the fact is that it happened, and what can you do about it? Right. So all you can do is initiate change and try to move forward, and like you're doing now, sharing your story and letting people know that, because even though you were drunk and you were stoned and you weren't in your right mind, that doesn't take away the fact that it happened.
No, I'm still accountable for what I do, 100%.
And unfortunately that sucks. And there is so much suckiness in the recovery world, all around. Enough suckiness for everybody to have 2 shares.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, really, there is.
Plus dessert.
Yeah, and I mean, it's on the medical side, it's on the law enforcement side, it's on the addict side. Yeah. It's an ugly situation all around.
Affects everybody. And what are your options now? What are your plans going forward after today?
After today, well, my goal now, my thing is I'm going to go back and finish school. I've got a year for my bachelor's, and I plan to go on to graduate school.
Well, what are you studying?
I am going to be a therapist.
Yeah?
That's where it's at. I love working with people like me, and I love helping other people understand their family members. And yeah, I just want to address it. I'm still accountable 100%.
No, I know. And I know that. But I get the frustration.
It's
because
more the charge itself.
Yeah.
The name of that charge prohibits me from a lot of things.
Yeah.
If
I've still got aftermath coming back after me,
Yeah,
things that
sure.
I have to do, and I want to scream and go, but look, I'm trying to do all these good things, and people go, yeah, you are, and we appreciate that, but I've still got to pay for the things I did, and what I do for me that works is being mindful and being present and going, I can't go back and change that. And if I want to sit here and spend all my time on that, I'm not moving forward.
Right.
And so I'm not, that's what I'm saying. It's like I'm conflicted. I get it. And because I'm in both those scenarios, but I the way I got to process that information is to go, I can fight it and I'll do my best to kind of lessen it if I can, but if I can't, then I'm stuck with it, and I've got to live with it, and I got to move forward.
Oh, yeah,
that's all I can do.
I'm definitely, this isn't going to be. I don't get to sit and be a victim.
Yeah. But don't let this stop you.
Oh,
is
no.
what I'm saying.
No, absolutely not. It's like you said, it sucks around, but this is also in a way it's good. This has reinvigorated some passion and some things that I feel like I can do to help this system and all of the people who go through this. It can be better, and I want to be a part of that.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, which is, you can look at this as a failure or a setback. A failure feels a lot heavier and often sends a person down a distracted road that's unhealthy. Or it can be a setback where it's discouraging. I can tell you're discouraged this week by learning this, but by using it as a time to educate yourself, reset, and move forward, it can be something that propels you down the right path again.
For me, I treat, not every time, but I try to, setbacks as fuel for my fire. Mm-hmm. Like every once in a while, I feel like everything's going good and feeling normal. And then I'll get this setback, and I'll go, okay, don't forget where you were, and don't forget where you're going. Let's let this go, and I use it to push me forward, and it seems to work for me. Right now, Ryan, you got a shot to talk to a lot of people. What would you say to somebody out there who's suffering right now?
Reach out. There's help, and sometimes it is definitely not going to be what you want. It's not going to look pretty. And it's going to be hard, but it's possible, and you're definitely not alone. And yeah, it's reach out, man. Just find anybody. There's so many resources. If somebody in such distress can call 211 on their phone and say, "Hey, I'm a drug addict. I need help." And they can point you to community resources and the ones that I utilized.
Because we hear often, I don't have insurance or deep pockets, so there aren't any options for me. And that's not true, is it?
It's just not true. If you want it, if you can get it. It's hard, sure, yeah, but it's worth it.
Would your advice be the same for somebody who is listening to the show today and they are harboring knowledge that they've been abused and they've never brought that up? What would your advice to them be?
I still feel like find somebody that you can trust, even if it's a therapist that you pay for, somebody that's maybe not involved, and I had to talk about it. That is the only way I could get further in my life.
Yeah. And I would encourage people to do the same. There's a lot of research on the fact that being abused as a child or a young person doesn't have to haunt you for your whole life. It doesn't have to be how you define yourself for your whole life. It always has negative ramifications. Of course, substance abuse is very common amongst people who are harboring those feelings of trauma from their abuse.
And relationships too.
Relationship problems. And I would highly recommend a person actually definitely reach out to a professional. If you have a family member that you can start the conversation with, that's great. But there are a lot of professional people in our community that are well trained to help you work it through.
Ryan, normally we don't give our guests 2 times for a final thought, but I think this would be powerful. What would you say to parents out there listening who've got the means, who've got the resources, that are trying to help their kids? What advice would you give them?
That is the one of the toughest situations that I see in work. It's very possible to love your kid to death, and it feels like help. But the best option has always been, you cannot financially support or even emotionally invest in helping somebody continue their addiction. There have to be boundaries and consequences. Otherwise, there is no motivation to change. If somebody is going to continue to pay for me to do what I feel like I have to do, I'm not going to stop. That has got to be the hardest decision, but saying no and just knowing that is what is going to make the best chance to get better.
Well, Ryan, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for having the courage to share your story on our podcast today. I think a lot of people will be helped, and this was just a raw, emotional podcast, and I'm proud of what you're doing. Please let us know how it's going, and thank you very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys.
Dr. Matt?
Well, I want to loop back around to what it means to be a man, and I think Ryan's demonstrating that right now. If being a tough individual, whether you're a man or a woman, I think means having the courage to face your demons, your setbacks, your fears, and progress, deal with that. I don't think there's anything better, tougher, more manly, so to speak, than somebody who's willing to be raw and honest like Ryan's been today. And I really applaud your desire to go back to school, finish your degree, and help other people. It's impressive. We all are going to benefit from that process that you're going through.
Well said. Hey, you're listening to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. If you know somebody who's suffering, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.